Wouldn't it be crazy if your taxes were paying for things like crack pipes? Well, even in a state like Idaho, this is not out of the question. The Idaho Department of Health and Welfare testified before the Joint Finance-Appropriations Committee on Thursday, outlining their role in the illegal activities of the Idaho Harm Reduction Project, a Boise-based nonprofit tasked with providing supplies to drug users. Even after the report, there is still a lot we don't know. But one thing's for certain, these leftist policies cannot continue in Idaho. On this week's episode of Fiscal Fridays, we are outlining Thursday's presentation and discussing how it will impact Idaho families and their values. Before we dig into the IDHW's presentation, let's take a couple steps back and get up to speed on the situation. Legislation passed in 2019 that allowed for the establishment of needle exchanges in the state of Idaho as part of existing harm reduction programs. One of the entities establishing these needle exchanges is the Idaho Harm Reduction Project, called IHARP for short. This group is a Boise-based nonprofit organization that provided taxpayer-subsidized supplies to drug users. The group was a far-left organization, often sponsoring things like the Boise Pride Festival and supporting socially deviant behaviors like sex work. A fault of leftists is that their ends always justify their means. At a conference, members of the group were gloating about how what they were doing was illegal in the state of Idaho, but it was for the greater good. This attitude caught up with them in February when the Boise Police Department raided the IHARP locations in Boise and Caldwell. IHARP likely distributed crack pipes and materials that encourage people to smoke their drugs instead of injecting them as part of their Safer Smoking initiative. In response to all this, the legislature decided to pull the plug on needle exchanges for good this legislative session. The program is, once again, outlawed. So, what extent did taxpayers cover all of this? That is where the information gets a little foggy. We know a subset of roughly $11 million in federally provided state opioid response grants were going to support the program. But in 2023, these funds were redirected. Instead, it seems the IDHW utilized HIV grants to fund the programs instead. But this was for activities that were technically within the boundaries of the law at the time, like disseminating needles and some non-paraphernalia supplies. But the report from the department on Thursday revealed that there were a lot of holes in the accountability of the program. There were issues with the invoices received from IHARP, where they simply noted that the cost was for supplies and the IDHW simply paid them. This means that there is no real way of tracking the amount spent on supplies that included things like crack pipes and other illegal drug paraphernalia. But the department is not innocent either. They knowingly printed the copies of the Safer Smoking flyers IHARP disseminated. There are also instances where the department approved programs where the use of needles was outside the scope of the needle exchange program. One example cited was previously reported by IFF as the use of needles to support hormone replacement therapies for, quote, transgender individuals. Unfortunately, these holes in the framework for the program and internal controls for reimbursement practices prevent taxpayers from getting a full accounting of the issue. Moving forward, the IDHW plans to do things a little differently. Because of the passage of House Bill 617 this year, there will be no more syringe exchange programs operating within the state. This is a huge victory for conservatives fighting the same leftist policies that are ravaging places like California, Oregon, and Washington. New policies will be in place for managing invoices, contracts, and in-kind relationships between the department and contractors. Under the new leadership of Alex Adams, there are already moves to change the culture of the department. In an email to IFF, Director Adams noted that he is actively implementing a new grant regulation and program review process. By the end of July, there will also be new accountability reports to provide data on which programs we have in our state and how they are performing. This might be just the culture change the department needs to prevent scenarios like this one in the future. Idahoans should be able to trust that their money is not being spent on illicit activities, and executive agencies are responsible for ensuring that that is the case. It is time that they, and the legislature alike, demand more accountability and transparency from the stewards of tax dollars. Hopefully, Idahoans will never again find out that their money went to provide free crack pipes for drug users. Thank you for supporting our work here at the Idaho Freedom Foundation. To ensure that our message of freedom, family, and small government continues to spread throughout the Gem State, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, we are still spreading our message of legislative accountability in our 2024 edition of the Idaho Freedom Index. See how your lawmaker scored on fiscal and social conservatism by going to idahofreedom.org/24index to get your free copy today.